Hello and welcome to another episode of the CollabTalk podcast. So the show that's dedicated to exploring how and why we collaborate and the extended collaboration stack. And through conversations with experts and real world stories and practical insights, we break down what makes collaboration work or fail and how to improve it. And my guest today is Goloshuk, a CEO of AI Champ. I know out of Portugal, you guys are all over the world, as we all are now. We're all hybrid or virtual all over the place. And we're talking today about hiring in the age of AI. It's faster, it's smarter, but is it still human? So Vol, really, well, you're welcome to the show.
Yes, Christian, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on your show.
Well, I always like to start out, like, tell us about yourself, your background, and the company, what you guys focus on, and then we'll jump into this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So previously, I've spent a decade in consulting with various engineering roles, banks and government, and then I built an agency focusing on like SDR as a service. And this was like a high turnover agency where we, at the peak, I had more than 80 people, and it's a difficult space, as those who work in
Yep.
this space understand. And there's a high turnover. You need to hire a lot of people, and this is kind of where I start feeling the problem. And then once the AI have matured to the level that it is right now, I've decided to build the product. And then since last year, we've launched an AI champ.
I know that. So I know that space well. I've worked for a couple software companies where they had the sales desks and they were just constantly recruiting. And because if you've never done that, like the sales development reps that are out there that are identifying leads and things that are out there. I mean, there's a lot that you can automate around that. But even the hiring process, the problem is people have never really done sales. Like, hey, I've always thought I'd be good at this, and they get in there, and it's like running through the crucible. Yeah, there's some people that realize that very quickly. This is not for me. This is not like I'm not good at this. I can't hit my numbers, much less make a bundle of money. And others that it just is fantastic. They are. I've got one of my adult kids that's on the sales side. Like he just keeps winning awards, getting bonuses off that. He's just really good at it. It just comes natural to him. And so a lot of that process, that hiring process, is like finding those golden hires, those people that just get it. It clicks with them and are fantastic at that. But you've got to go through a lot of people to find those golden hires.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the days when our recruiter, she had typically like 5 to 10 interviews every day, and she's like, "Guys, can we please hire somebody? I'm getting tired with this." And then we want to look into some other roles, and it was difficult. And essentially, and the hiring wasn't easy because it requires a lot of interviews. Because the first one, pre-screening, obviously the recruiter did not have enough sales skills to be able to see the right things in this every candidate. So it had to be me again interviewing, spending my time, and then and that's what essentially now AI can do. It's you have options. Before there was no option. Before you have to spend the time as yourself as a CEO. Now, or you can hire, as we call it, your own chief recruitment agent. You can customize it for every role, and this agent can be more efficient, not just when you compare it to the traditional recruiter. It's probably more efficient than me because I can't focus enough to do the sales role play with every candidate to the level that AI can. So
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer now.
What's funny, I mean, you see like this whole recruiting process has become really compressed out there across the industry. And so like
Yeah.
I get daily. I'm like, it's no exaggeration. Daily, I get multiple, people reaching out that are from like lead generation services, and of course, there's all like the design, the kind of the traditional agency that's AI generated, and like I work in the space. I leverage the tools. I'm creating agents and automating a lot on the back end. But this process is something where like, can I go use like Microsoft Copilot internally, or like ChatGPT or Gemini or something, and build an agent that can automate a bunch of the different pieces. Like, but yeah, but it's like going out and can you build a tool that does this? Like, yes, but why would you not go buy an end-to-end complete solution built by experts that have been doing this for years versus try to build it and then maintain it? Is it going to have all the functionality if I build it myself versus go and leverage a solution? So there's that whole discussion, the build versus buy on the solutions. But just in this space itself, I mean, how has in the time that you've been in this space, has the recruiting process changed? How's it been impacted by automation, and now with AI automation specifically?
Yeah, these are like amazing questions. So the uh, the war for talent has never ended, and even though there are some roles where a lot of people applied, some others very few, it still requires a lot of effort to get the right talent. And with AI, this has changed the game, because essentially, those the best people typically don't look for jobs are chasing them. And then and if they have that little time, whatever day they can have an interview, quite often traditional recruiters might not have that spot, or they're like too late to the game, they already got another offer, and then you're out. So with AI, is like the moment somebody's interested in, they can hop on the interview, they can get screened right away, the system can make a decision immediately. So this gives a huge competitive advantage to anyone who is considering such solution, because they're just going to be able to get the best candidates. And I can give you an example. Like, we've just for the standard VA, we've had like 600 interviews in like a couple of days. and that's and then there's no way you can compete with that. And obviously we've hired some really amazing people from that initiative, and we are incredibly happy, even for the agency, which still operates. We've tested a couple of hires for the SDR position, and that was obvious, because the other point is like, it's not only just by interviewing, it's also how can you validate their experience. So for example, for the technical role or for the SDR, you can typically ask specific tasks, because now AI can, we use AI, but the applicants can also use AI, and they can also, work with the system
And they can
and then,
optimize their resume. They can make it so that I mean, they could look at a target company. If I know,
yeah,
hey, I'm interested in that role, I've got the job description, plus I've
yeah,
got the company profile. So I can go and say, hey, generate a version of my resume that is optimized for AI for the scanning, has all the right keywords from the job description, touches on key themes that the company profile includes. You could get somebody who's really hardcore that could go and look at the executive team or even the hiring manager if they have a public face and they've written blog posts and articles, even draw upon those things. So you could really position, like optimize your positioning against that role. Like,
yeah.
how does AI cut through all of that to find out, hey, this is somebody who genuinely has the right experience and might be a fit?
Yeah, so that's amazing question, because that's why AI is not, it's works both ways. If we're using AI, it doesn't mean the other person isn't smart enough to use AI to answer every question how we want to hear them. So we need to be, we need to figure out new ways to validate people's like applicants' experience and skills. So what we do is we actually generate a task which is unique to every role. And then we just assign it to the person and say, look, you can use any tools you want, you can use AI, but here's the task, send us the result, and we'll validate it. And that's the only way to kind of to recruit these days, because with any question there can be any answer. And yeah, so we that's how we fight against it right now.
Well, that's like you think of that too, like in the education sector, and I'm like I feel for educators, for teachers. If you give out homework and stuff, and it's not just. I mean, there's great if you watch like Saturday Night Live, there's a skit where like the students, like everybody's going out and obviously just stealing, pulling data down, plagiarizing from the internet. Um, there's a bunch of jokes around that. It's like, how do you know I stole it from the internet? It's like, well, because you pulled this image directly from mapquest.com. It's like, one, who's still using MapQuest? Two, you've got the URLs from the sites that you pulled this stuff from. It's clearly not your work. But the truth is, unless you're interviewing live, and maybe this is like that kind of my next question was going to be around, what can be automated versus what needs to remain human. But in the education sector, one way around that is that you can structure the homework in a way that they're going to go utilize these tools, and you want them to do it properly and properly cite them and reference the external work, but in the classroom to prove your knowledge and your understanding of that by essay questions, by tests and things in person, so that there's no way they can go leverage a device and cheat and pull those answers up. But going back to, in the recruiting process, what are those areas where you see that are clearly, hey, this should be automated by AI? Here are things that you need to do, human centered.
Yeah, so in terms of the automation, so we've typically automated screening. So any data from the interview, scoring of their resume or the conversation, fully automated. So we can score it right away. There's no need for anything. I'd say that the only part that even with the cultural fit, you could also kind of use AI to find the right talent. And the way to do this is just see if there is a common patterns with like common interests, or common country that people have worked or studied, etc. You could find some commonalities with through a company when comparing to every applicant. So this also can be automated. So I honestly don't know what else can be let for humans to validate here. I'd say that we're going to be just on a final part that is still kind of making a decision, because making a decision is, you can't let AI to basically hire somebody right away because you don't know what are their score, what experience, etc. There's going to be somebody that probably like a senior executive who's going to be looking at all the data and then making instant decision is like, okay, well, this is the best talent applicant we could ever find, or okay, I don't think we can work with these applicants. Let's just spend some more time and then let's find somebody if we can. And then that's kind of final decision is still left for humans to essentially make this decision. But any other data that we need is essentially, AI is much better at making such decisions.
Well, I think if you're looking at the the kind of the quantitative measurements, like do they have the skills or not? Here's the criteria, do they fit within that? I mean, obviously, I always use the example of, okay, 100 resumes in, it can go through and scan and say, okay, look, here's the primary criteria, these 3-4 things that they must have for this role. Of the 100 that were resumes in on this day, 50 of them meet that criteria. Okay, you just cut the list that you have to then do additional steps in half. And then the next, you could have other qualifiers of level of experience, income expectations, whatever those things are that as you go and validate. You can also, the AI can go and follow up on references, like, is there any record of this person working at these places that they're claiming? Kind of all of those different factors further scrub that list, go and do. Those are all things which, an agent can go out there, run that, validate that information and come back. And even as you said, like cultural fit, You can ask those cultural questions, but even like a score, I guess technically I would look at that and have questions about that, depending on what the questions are and what the score is. But somebody who might score lower overall, maybe they're not as strong with the technical capability, but could be a much stronger cultural fit. And so do you actually go in and fine tune work with companies to adjust the algorithm, the assessment based on those kinds of intangible asset, just the aspects of the culture of the organization as well? Is that part of your calculations, part of the way that you work with clients?
Yeah, because essentially everyone has a different vision of who they want on board, and somebody values culture more than some other parameters. Somebody's like looking at just budget and saying, "Look, we just need somebody." Others just experience is the first thing. So we have like a multiple scoring fields where you can actually filter every talent by each of these parameters. So and we just give the flexibility of selecting everyone how they want to hire talent, because at the end of the day you wouldn't get a perfect match on anything. I mean, all you need is an option to filter the pipeline to the level that is flexible for you. You can just get, you can be easier on, maybe have higher budget, but because you're seeing that there are candidates that are matching with who you're looking for, or adjust the location and say, okay, let's just expand not just the US, let's do Canada as well, let's do some of the UK or other countries, because this is this is better talent. So I think AI is giving this flexibility of changing the scoring parameters, because there's never going to be an ideal candidate. There's never going to be the one that has everything you want. So that's how we see it when you have like a dashboard with an applicants, and then the final human is going to look at the numbers and just make a decision and say, okay, this is the right one.
See, that's I keep going back to, and having been hiring manager and worked at a number of startups and venture capital based startups, bootstrap startups, so large and small startups, and going through. I remember one company I was working for. We were so I think we venture capital funds totaled $280 million. Before I left, I was there for 3 years. I know I think the total they raised before they eventually went public a decade later, but was like $350 million. So not a small size. Of course, that sounds large now. In 10 years, that might sound like nothing. There might be multi-billion-dollar funded startups there, but they were very creative in their hiring process, and so much of that was trying to pick up on the interpersonal cues. So there could be something like, when we say cultural fit, what does it actually mean? And different hiring managers, because part of it, like, I'm an expert in my area and these topics. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not trained specifically. There's some training I've been through with the various companies, but to interpret the responses from these tricky management questions that I read about online or read a book on interviewing, most people are not. Most hiring managers have no training on that. So to even say that I'd be qualified to identify, much less pick up on a lot of those cues, but like, I remember interviewing somebody where my gut feel was that this person has no desire to work here. Like, there was like the motivation. There was a serious gap. And when I brought that up, other people said I had the exact same feeling. I'm like, hey, if we're all having a consistent gut feel, there's our answer. On paper, they look like a great fit. So they could be scored incredibly high, but then from the human interaction with them, be like, now this is off. Like, this other person that looks less qualified, but they're hungry for it, they're learning, they're passionate, like the rest of the story, the narrative is strong. And we went with the cultural fit over the highly scored, on paper, better fit.
Yeah, no, it's It's totally understandable. And the way I see this, because I've been working in consulting, and I worked at MasterCard, and I've been hired, and then I also hired people to MasterCard, made the decision to have some other guys joining my team. And I think that it just comes to the final decision is like, does the other person that you're seeing on the other like a side, is that somebody you want to spend time with? And then we as a humans, we can kind of, have like this 5-second rule, and we can make a decision like right away. It's like, oh, actually I think this is an interesting character, or let's just, this would be great to work with this person. So that's probably another point that could still be left to humans to decide, because this is not something that you can program. You can kind of analyze the background, the experience, the interest, and things which can be close, but it's still not 100%. And then the human is still, once you see somebody, it's like, oh, that would be great to, even to not even to work with, is just go for lunch together, or just do some sporting activities together. And that kind of creates the bond with a company, where
Yeah.
you actually want to create something together. And it's not like 9 to 5, because with most companies, they want you to commit to the company and then build the great things. And that's what is necessary for us to 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 be connected with each other during the any time of the day.
Yeah. Well, it's again, that's why I appreciated this one startup that I was with that was uh, based in Redwood City, California. So they're on the peninsula south of San Francisco. But that they would have it was a good portion of a full day. They had set up days which were interview days, and just about everybody in the company was involved in something. And I loved it because there were two activities that they did. That they would bring the person in late morning, go through with like HR and all this. Again, this is without any of the automation. This is back in the early 2000s. But then they would go to lunch, and they would go out with a group of candidates, like 3 or 4 candidates for different roles. It didn't matter, maybe some of the same role, but different roles. And with multiple members they had a certain number of other employees. And they would say like, okay, we're not talking shop necessarily. That's casual. This is supposed to be where people let their guard down and they talk. And we sometimes walked away from those lunches with our eyebrows raised, like, oh my gosh, like that, just like the person ordered like 4 drinks. Are you kidding? We'd let it, you know, like the phrase is, give them plenty of rope to hang themselves on that if they're going to
Yeah.
go that direction. That tells us a lot about the candidate.
Oh
But
yeah.
that interaction with each other in the casual setting, and then the other thing, they go back and do some more interviews, and at the end of the day, the company would actually shut down at like 3:30 on Friday, the recruiting day Fridays, and there'd be like beer and sodas and stuff. And at one point, the different offices like outside the patio, there'd be some barbecue and stuff, but just standing around and networking. So employees would come in. Some people would go take the advantage, go home early, but others would come in, have a couple drinks, you're talking in a casual setting. And again, I think we learned so much from those networking. There's no way to replicate this with AI, conversations, the interpersonal relationship networking side of things. We learned so much about these candidates from that. Again, it might be somebody who like, boy, they were low on the score of this. They've got a lot to learn. They're kind of newer in this area, but they fit like with it. Like I think they would get along great, easy to work with, hungry to learn, where this other person might have more technical skill, but is more aloof, which might be fine for the role, where you want the deepest technical expertise. But my next question for you is more from the candidate perspective. So with all of this automation, should candidates like prepare differently? If they're trying to interview, their how they build their resume, what should they be doing differently for this new world of recruiting?
Yeah, So before I answer this question, just for the previous one, that I just one point that's why we built AI, because you can't have like 10 lunches in one day. You need to have AI to select the right people, and
That's
that's
right.
important.
You're right. Before they even get invited to the office to
Yeah,
be able to have that experience, you're right. I mean, a lot of
yeah,
that you can
yeah.
automate. Agreed.
Yeah, exactly. So moving back to how to prepare for the interview. So I would say that I don't want to be the one that is like, oh, you can't use AI for the interview. You need to use your head and nothing else, because that's not like how you're gonna do your job. When you're gonna be doing something, you're gonna use everything you can to your disposal.
Yep.
So we might as well test your skills in that as well. So why don't we just you know give you a feedback right away, because the way I see this right now with recruitment is like a black box. You apply to somebody, you speak with someone, and then
You
we'll
never
call
hear
you
back.
back. Yeah, and then will they call me back, or was I should I read something like how was I? And then for those who really want to improve, they need a feedback, and that's what AI is much better at, because like you can get a feedback right away. You don't need to ask somebody to spend another half an hour trying to digest the interview. AI is already there. It can basically tell you everything.
Of course, the company needs to like turn that on. Is like there needs to be that feedback. Like I
Yeah.
would love it if more companies, one, if they reject you, it's like fine, let me know. Don't have me hanging on. If you rejected me through the AI screen within 30 minutes of me completely answering the questions, tell me immediately. If you could give me more information, like here's why you weren't a fit for this. So if I think, hey, there's a mistake was made, or you know, like how did I miss that in my resume? Like I have years of experience with that thing that you think I have no experience with, and it could make a difference. Like, but then you'd be able to improve upon that. But few, if any, like companies like do that step and provide that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we've had the same, and I must say, even I don't think our recruiter was able to even provide a feedback, because she were not the one making a decision. So I had to review the scorecard, and then hear your feedback, and then make a decision. So the process was always broke. It's like either I need to take the interview and then make a proper decision, or we need to figure out based on her points just to see if this person is good enough for this interview. And that never worked. And I think now with AI, you apply instantly, you can get interviewed instantly, you can get feedback instantly. That's how it should be. You don't need to wait for any of this. I mean, with the technology we have nowadays. And then I think this is the perfect opportunity for the best of us to prosper. For those who are really want to learn from the data they get, they'll perfect themselves. They learn, they get the feedback, they'll fix things that they need to fix, and they'll get the highest score. And those who might not be interested in that, they might just try to apply elsewhere. So, and that's, I think, also okay. And I think that's where AI can solve a lot of problems and make decisions faster.
Do you see this with your solution with your clients, where they are providing that feedback back to candidates? Here's why you didn't get selected for it. Is there a like a workflow, like a correction opportunity? If I realize that, you know what, I put in my standard resume which didn't highlight this other, and I realized that now it was important to, and this is a reason why I didn't get selected. I think it's actually a mistake. I need to go back and update my resume. I think I am actually qualified in that area. Like that scenario, do you see how many clients where there is a like a resubmit? Let me make a change there. Clarify my experience in that category that I got feedback on, and then resubmit. Or
Yeah.
did most of the AI, would it just reject it outright? Like I've already seen this. I don't see a change. You already got rejected. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I've read too many books about this, and I can tell you right away that one of the best books is Hire for Attitude, and then this is kind of self-explanatory. The other one is Sales Acceleration Formula. When a HubSpot founder have built this interviewing model where he said attitude is one of the the main factors that allowed them to build an amazing company, because they try to see if the person actually can receive feedback and learn from it and then can try again.
Yeah.
And that's what we've also built at AI Champ, because you can actually take the interview one more time. There's no limit. You could start the interview, you could start it again if you get feedback and you feel like, oh, okay, that didn't go too well. Okay, I can do it again. And especially in sales, that's where we have a lot of clients right now. The interview is not about your experience. It's actually how you behave on the phone, is whether you are able to conduct a role play, and then whether you can get a feedback from it and then learn from it and then try again. And that's the next level of interview, because you can actually learn from the interview. You could practice and then get better at it, and which is fine, as long as you get the highest score. For us or for our clients, they just need the one with highest score, whether you can do it from 5th or 7th or 100th after whatever 20 times. As long as you can get there and stay there, that's all we need. So
It's interesting. I've got a couple thoughts that just came out of that. It makes me think of like taking standardized tests, like to get it, the university level. It's the US, there's the SATs, the ACTs. I took the ACTs. Like I did when I was in high school, and as a dumb kid, I didn't prep for it at all. I went in there just like, here's my brain. I mean, thankfully I 2 universities I was interested in attending. I got accepted into both of them with the scores that I got. And could I have studied more and prepped for that and done better if I retook it? Definitely. But it was enough. I didn't care. I got in, so done.
yeah.
But being able to go and do like a pre-test or retake the test can overcome some of that that nervousness. But just the other reality of the modern recruiting process, it can be incredibly discouraging for candidates looking for work. And so we've got this faceless AI scanning, scraping the top of resumes and various services. Like LinkedIn for years was excellent for finding stuff. Like it's almost useless now. As like I would never submit a resume now through LinkedIn. I would go to go to the company directly. I would leverage LinkedIn to find in my network, do I have any connections that work at that target company or work in that industry, or is a friend of a friend that can provide an introduction to cut past that. Otherwise, again, it's like nameless, faceless, submit to the job description, never hear back, never get any feedback about that. And it can be very demoralizing, frustrating for the candidate, which is kind of why I said, like, how has that changed? What else can a candidate do to make sure that they're optimized? So we've talked about like leveraging AI, as I suggested, like rewrite my resume so that it is an ideal candidate, based on my experience here's the job description, all the keywords, all the things that AI, it's optimized for that AI scan and can get you past that first. If you've got the experience, if you are a fit for the role, you get past that first gatekeeper of that scan.
Yeah. And it's a very good, valid points. And from if we're looking at their different vacancies, but on for example, for like account executive role or sales manager role, we've seen a lot of among my network as well, a lot of founders hired people because of their persistence. So it's not like if you're a salesperson, you use you click apply and you think this will be enough for you to secure the job. you you're missing out, because there's a lot of smart people that not understanding how this works, and they're like, okay, let's message a hiring manager. Oh, okay, let's message a CEO, and then let's point out them that this is why you're best fit. And then you'll be surprised how many people are making a decision and saying, okay, let's just get this guy. He was the most persistent. And you think he's going to be that persistent with like our prospects, we're just going to make a killing. And that's how it works. And I think that's kind of turning into the commitment game, how committed they are, and
Yeah.
to the company and to the future role.
I think I learned a lesson early on, thankfully, early on in my career, as I was trying to, finishing my undergrad degree, went on to get my MBA. But in interviewing, somebody gave me advice like, when you go in, there's always going to be the question at the end, like, do you have any questions? Never say, nope, I think I'm good. You're like, no, have a list of questions. Understand the company, like why they ask that question, like, why are you interested in working for this company? Have an answer for that. Have done some research, understand what the latest news is, the latest releases, the latest announcements, what's out on their public facing, the blog, what profile they're trying to project out to that, all those kinds of things. Like, do your homework for that. Like, I don't think that any of that changes with the
Yeah,
rest of this process being automated. You should still be
exactly.
ready.
Exactly. Attention to details always wins, and then it's the same for any role, whether it's not just sales, but for marketing, etc. If the person is has attention to detail and understanding the role and wanting to commit and exceed all the expectations, he or she's going to have like thousands of questions. Is like, oh, tell me about your product. What was the other guys, doing at marketing? How has it been? I mean, has anyone else wear this role? And this could be like thousands of questions. But if the person is like, oh, I'm fine, it's like, how the hell he's going to be exceeding in this comparing to those guys? So
Right.
it's an easy one.
Well, I've got a couple questions for you on the topic. I know that there is, so we've seen some very public examples of this when both Microsoft and Google had released like these AI profiles out there, and how quickly within a day or two they were corrupted by people asking it. Suddenly the AI, I think it was Google's, that within 24 hours it's racist now. Like, how did that happen? People polluting it with questions and data and all the things that around that go out there. How much do you have a concern do you have when you think about like your clients, companies that you're working with this kind of solution of tuning it for monitoring bias, of thinking about it from bias, from the ethical standpoints, oversight? And part two to that question is, like, do you recommend having like human checkpoints in an otherwise fully automated process? So how do you handle that bias and oversight of the recruiting process with your solution?
Yeah, and what do you mean by human checkpoints?
Well, again, it could be like you talk about like creating like a score at the
Mhm.
end, but then a human, the hiring manager, needs to look at that. And do you weigh the decision purely off that score, or are there other factors? Do they then use the score just for who that they want to bring in and do a face-to-face interview to do that cultural fit? Like, do you have, clients that say, hey, I want to do the initial scan, but I still want to have human eyes looking at and moving it to the next automation step? Or do you see more and more fully automated up until the hiring manager makes a decision and maybe even hires people without ever having talked to them in person? Like, where do you see the human involvement in the process now? Where do you see that most consistently?
Yeah, I'd say that the final decision, or as we've probably also brainstormed, like the first 5-second rule is going to be a defining here. So the applicant, most likely is going to get applied and then recorded, and then from the initial like the first 5 seconds, they're going to make a decision. Is like, oh, okay, that's this is someone I want to work with. And that thing could be biased, because like, okay, why how do you select this person? Is like, does it mean that you went to this university but not that one, or you've lived in that country but not the other one? It's a difficult challenging question, because like there's no answer, and then we can't really control that. The companies hiring people, and they ultimately make the decision. And then essentially that could also affect, if they are selecting candidates by something that isn't directly correlated with the company growth, product, like revenue, but again, it's all questionable. So yeah, so that's why we've just decided that the key decision on hiring still has to be done by human, and then everyone has a different vision of like who they want to be in their with their team, and because typically. Um, uh, yeah, there's a lot of like cultural differences among us, and then if you look into like a Japanese culture or Indian culture or the US and European, there's still some discrepancies that could potentially create friction points or misunderstandings among our teams if we're going to be trying to collaborate together. And actually, and that's why we've tried to hire people from all continents. As like I have 3 VAs and they're all from different continents, so I just want to see how we can
The
collaborate.
differences and the standards. Well, that's crazy too. I mean, I realize too, like we talk about a lot in the US,
Yeah.
like with email marketing and the differences with, of course, the EU with GDPR and some of the rules around that. And now we have in the US, there are states which are doing, like very, GDPR like controls rules around going and doing that. Different countries like Australia has their standards. A number of regions are doing things similar. Well, this process, so there's a discussion that's happening around. Well, let me back up. So when you think about going and filing for a patent or trademarking something, putting protections in place. There's a lot of rules that if you leverage AI to generate an image, for an example, and it might be completely unique, but because it's pulled from all these other sources, if it's identified that that image was generated with AI, you can't trademark it. You can't protect it because it's amalgamation of different images and prompts to get to that creation. The problem happens with in that image example is that I might be a photographer. I go take a picture and I'm like, that picture is perfect, except in the bottom right side of the frame, a cat walked into my landscape. And so I might use AI to remove the cat from this otherwise perfect. It's now I've modified using AI, original image, even though all I did was if I used Photoshop, I would not have the problem. But if I used AI to modify that, it's a problem. And I have to classify it different by some of these standards that are out there. So, given that background, because I'm sure you've heard these same discussions and concerns around that, there's a number of governments, a number of nations that are looking at and saying, do we have to if we're using AI for anything within our workflow, do we have to tell, like, say, here's how we're using AI? Like, there should be standards around that. And so they want to do it, digitally. Like, there's a basically breadcrumbs if you went and use this. Like, is that a thing yet within the recruiting process where you have to tell the world like, hey, we use AI to do these things? So it's almost like you're exposing like the auditable trail of how we're leveraging AI for our recruiting. Is that a real thing yet? Because I've heard that discussed, but I don't know that there's any country, any region that's yet said this is the law of our land. If you're going to recruit here within our country, you must be very specific and outline how you're using AI in that process.
Yeah, I think from what I've read, there's been some talks about regulating this, and then even with right now with the interviewing, there are some regulations where you need to specify whether the person has served in the U.S. Army, a veteran, and then there's a couple of other parameters for. And then I'm seeing it's very standard across different applicant tracking solutions. So it seems it's obvious it makes sense. So then it must be a regulation to include that. And I'd say this industry is safe as long as it's not going to be creating problems for everyone. So, for example, robocalling is been restricted for obvious reasons in the US, because like if everyone's going to be calling with agents and the world's going to go
Yeah,
nuts, your
I
phones are
know.
going
I
to,
wish there were stronger rules around texts. Like, I don't
yeah.
get the calls as much. I still do, but the texts are out of control.
Yeah, exactly. So if this is creating a problem, then it has to be regulated. So for the interviewing, I really don't see where it can create problems. But if there will be somebody misusing the system in the way that will make other people uncomfortable, I'm all in for regulation.
Yeah.
Something has to step in.
Well, I've got kind of two final questions for you because I think that's I always like to kind of end on practical guidance and for this for leaders. So, what advice do you have for companies that are looking to automate and implement AI specifically within their recruitment process? So, are there things that you when you work with new clients where that there's like prep work they need to do for this? Like what's your recommendation? What should companies start thinking about?
Yeah, so I would say the best, the starting point from here would be to first don't start with AI without manual recruiting first. You need somebody to go through the process and then experience the situation, understand the people on the other side, and then you can actually build your chief recruitment agent for every role. But if you don't have that experience, it's, as we call it, garbage in, garbage out. Like, you, AI is not going to be smarter than you to figure out what
You're
you're
not
looking
going to know
for.
the nuances of that. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I,
Yeah,
I,
so yeah, and that's the exceptions from this rule is only applicable for like specific roles where interview is very templated. So let's say for account executive role, this is very standard interview where AI typically figures out like what industries were you selling to if it wasn't clear in the resume, and asking what how what was your revenue target, have you achieved it. So if it's not included, like a standard questions, so you could use AI. But for any other role that is not like templated, you need to go through the process before thinking of implementing the AI.
yeah. Yeah. I would you say is there one thing that companies get wrong when they're trying to automate their hiring processes? Is there a common mistake or set of mistakes that they make?
I'd say that a common mistake is I'd say not to adopt this technology, sooner, like yesterday, because at the end of the day is like, do you want to wait 7 days for the interview and the decision, or do you want to do it in 7 minutes? It's
Yeah.
like, do you want to have a specialist with 100% focus interviewing your candidates and making the creating role plays or technical task where you can validate it? Or do you better trust somebody who just got this recruitment job, who may not have the expertise? Or are you willing to spend 5-10 times more on a human recruiter rather than letting AI do it? I mean, it's a no-brainer. So I think this is the biggest mistake for everyone, is just not adopting this technology sooner.
Yeah. Well, I think again, that's why I think this is such a hot area for it. It just is such an excellent case study of here's an area and aspect of the business which is fairly consistent across industries, and the types of questions that you ask, the structure of the recruiting process. There's very few unique recruiting processes that are out there. It's pretty standard. Then you obviously have the distinct unique things about the roles that you're hiring into, but this is something where you can go and leverage the years of experience and the vendors, the experts that are out there automating the process. Where I go back to where we kind of started. Like I'm doing training with people on leveraging AI. I focus a lot on Copilot because I'm in work in the Microsoft stack. but training on how to use kind of the basics and all the things you can do. And so I get questions all the time like, can I use this and go and automate this process and build a solution that does this? And I always say, it's like, you can. The harder question is always, should you? Or like, should I go try and automate and build all the things that AI Champ does? It's like, you could go and do that. It's like, or you could look at all the time that it would take to go and build that and test it, add the additional functionality. It could take a long time. It's the build versus buy argument. And then I have to maintain it and support it. What if the person who built it then leaves the company and that knowledge is lost? Versus buy a service that provides this and automates those things. So yeah, there's always that build versus buy discussion. But I think the answer is always, people love the consultant answer of the well, it depends.
Yeah,
Which
I mean, well, it depends. Is like for any SaaS or AI based solution, like, do you really need CRM, or are you better off with a spreadsheet? I mean,
yeah,
it's fine,
yep.
you can use that.
That's actually one of my favorite things, is that when people would say like, well, I need to go and build a CRM, like, could I go and build it? It's like, you could. Why would you? There
Yeah.
are free CRM platforms out there that are much better than what you can go and create in a month of full-time engineer trying to build a solution. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's a popular scenario.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and I've
exactly.
seen people go and be like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm like, okay, good luck with that. You know, let's,
Yeah.
I've got my bowl of popcorn. I'll sit and watch the results there, but
Yeah, it's the same thing was with the YC startup Dropbox at the early days when he was launching. There was a lot of like hate around it. It's like, what, sharing data online? It's like, you can just you could launch this open source platform. You can
I,
store all your data. It takes you like a
I
couple of
used to,
seconds.
I had an FTP server, right?
Yeah,
And I'm like, I
yeah,
didn't understand it at first. I'd be like, yeah, here, just use this. Just set up the FTP protocol. Just understand these basic commands
yeah,
to send and receive. It's just that easy, why? Right.
yeah. Good luck.
I know. I know. So, well, Vol, really appreciate your time. I always like to leave off here. So people want to find out more about your company. And so I know that on the website, so you can easily go in and schedule, get a demo, set up a meeting and directly. But what's your elevator pitch for people that want to find out more about your company?
Yeah, so if you want to build your personal chief recruitment agent for any roles, the open roles that you have, reach out to AI Champ. We'll be happy to help you. It's aichamp.com, and then you can just schedule a call with me right from there, or just email me on vol@aichamp.com.
Excellent. Well, we'll have, of course, the links out on the blog post and out in YouTube as well. So really appreciate your time.
Likewise, Christian, thanks for having me. It's a great time. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yep. You've been listening to the CollabTalk podcast. New episodes are published weekly, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and most other podcast platforms. Thanks for listening.